I'm Pat Callahan, and on an action-packed week 3 of this week in pro football, the Cowboys are dealt a severe blow today at practice. We'll talk with Sal about that. Some 0-2 teams have their fingers right on the panic button. Sal Paolantonio and some ugly quarterbacking in weeks 1 and 2 in the National Football League. Sean Green joins us to talk about a mystifying field goal. Justin Bruni will talk fantasy and running back Armageddon. And finally, Bob also from NFL Films will talk about the NFL off camera. We're going to do all that on an action-packed show here this week in pro football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Sports.
All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to week 3 of This Week in Pro Football here on JAKIB Sports. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Pat Callahan. And for the next 70 or so minutes, we are going to talk about the National Football League and, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles as they get ready for a Monday nighter against the surprising 2-0 Tampa Bay Bucks behind a seemingly resurgent Baker Mayfield. We'll talk to Sal about that and about what problems he might present, what the Buccaneers might present to the 2-0 Eagles as they go down to Tampa Bay on a Monday night game, 8:15. We have plenty of other things to do, though. I want to talk about, as usual, we do this every time, week 3. We look at some 0-2 teams and some surprising 0-2 teams that are really staring now over the abyss. You don't want to go 0-3 in the NFL because the odds of making the playoffs become very thin indeed. We're going to have the usual suspects coming in here. Sean Green, I want to talk to him about some week 3 props and some strange goings on in week 2. Justin Bruni on just some absolute carnage at the running back position. Relative to not just fantasy football, but football in general, and what to do. How do you circle the wagons if you're like me and drafted Nick Chubb in the first round in your fantasy draft, and all of a sudden Chubb, who was on his way to a big night, Monday night, is instead carted off the field. And Bob Angelo, the longtime cameraman and producer for NFL Films, wrote a book. The book is called The NFL Off Camera. And it's really a character study from the most memorable characters and events that took place during Bob's tenure with NFL Films. We'll talk to him at the top of the next hour, and it should be a very, very interesting conversation, and we'll take a look at Bob's books. That's all coming up here on This Week in Pro Football. How about, Xander, we bring it up the week 2 standings in the National Football League. After 2 weeks, you can see here that some surprises, and we'll focus throughout the hour on the teams that are looking at 0-2, and not the usual suspects 0-2 like the Houston Texans. But if you look in that AFC, ladies and gentlemen, the American Football Conference, these standings here are really presented without division, but it's okay because it's early in the season. But you can see the LA Chargers 0-2, the Denver Broncos 0-2, New England 0-2, and the Cincinnati Bengals 0-2. Very surprising. 0-2 teams there in the AFC, and some of them looking at tough week 3 games. We're going to talk about that with Sal Pao in just a few minutes. In the NFC, the Cowboys, 49ers, the Eagles sit at 2-0. Of course, the Saints, oh boy, Derek Carr is a terrible quarterback. I'm sorry, but 3 teams in the NFC South are 2-0. I don't think any of them are worth a damn, including maybe Tampa Bay, but perhaps I should hold off on that till Tuesday morning. And then in the 0-2 surprise here really is only the Minnesota Vikings in the NFC. Minnesota did not think they'd be sitting 0-2 after opening the season at home against Tampa Bay and losing 20-17. So the real carnage here as far as the schedule is concerned is in the AFC. There are some teams that had some postseason hopes and look to be going far into the postseason that are right now staring at serious trouble at 0-2, and some having to be on the road like New England and the LA Chargers facing teams that are not going to be an easy out. So that's your week 2 standings in the National Football League. There tonight, Thursday night football, the San Francisco 49ers play host to the New York Giants. The Giants missing 4 starters going into the game. The Giants are not 0-2. They should be if the Arizona Cardinals knew how to close out a game, which they don't. Arizona up 20 points on the Giants, could not close that game out. So the Giants eke out a win there. Very gutsy win for New York to get to 1-1, or else they'd be really in trouble at 0-2. But as such, they're going out now to San Francisco. They're going to get bashed by the 49ers tonight. 49ers are a very good team, and they play with a very bad attitude. So it's tough to go in now and beat that team. They are very interested in beating you. And they're going to be a tough out all season long. As we go through this season, the anticipation will build for the night they come to Philadelphia later on this season. That will be a big, big game in the NFL that weekend. So I don't think it's a very good Thursday night offering because the Giants are banged up. No Saquon. We'll talk with Justin Bruni more about that. And then, as I said, there's 2 Monday night games again for the second week in a row. ESPN and ABC doing this, doubling up on games. 7 o'clock, the Rams are in Cincinnati. And at 8:15, the Eagles are in Tampa Bay. So, Xander, why don't we bring this gentleman on here, my longtime colleague and the senior correspondent for ESPN, and the coming winner or the recipient of the Dick Vermeil Lifetime Achievement Award, which will be given to Sal at the 25th annual banquet of the Otho Davis Scholarship Foundation on November 1st. That's Sal Paolantonio. Congratulations to you, Sal.
Hey, Pat. It's great to be honored like that and to be in the same company with Dave Montgomery, the former late chairman and president of the Phillies, and Dr. Gary Dorsheimer. He was a Friars doctor for years and years and years and still is. And, of course, Merrill Reese and Ron Jaworski and Ray Didinger. To be in that company is pretty darn good. So I'm excited. My family is excited. I hope you're going to bring the Mrs. Pat. We're looking forward to having you.
Looking forward to being there, certainly. I would, and anybody who might be interested. It's Wednesday, November 1st at the Marriott Old City. And so please check it out. And
that you go to orthodavis.org, foundation.org, and donate some money. It's a great cause. This is the 25th annual banquet, what we call, Pat, Philly football night in Philadelphia. So it's a great event. And they're honoring the 15th anniversary of the championship Phillies of 2008. So lot of stuff going on that
Very
night.
Good. All right, Sal, let's talk a little football here. The Eagles Monday night travel to 2-0 Tampa Bay. I think everybody's surprised about that. But that Tampa beating a Minnesota team that just wasn't ready to play and then beating a Chicago team that I don't think Sal is ever going to be ready to play. But have we underrated the Tampa Bay Bucks? And should the Eagles go in there with a sense that they're in for a game?
Oh, they're going to be in for a fight. So the Eagles have struggled to win there many, many years in a row now, and they're going to struggle to win on Monday night for 2 specific reasons. One, Baker Mayfield has not turned the ball over. The number one indicator of a quarterback's ability to win football games or a team to win football games is the quarterback turning the ball over, and Baker Mayfield is not doing that. And it's very tough to get off the field on third down, Pat. He's 20 of 23 for 201 yards and 3 touchdowns on third down alone. On the money down, Baker Mayfield has been a machine. I went down to Tampa this summer and I interviewed him one-on-one. We've had a lot of that on the air. Some of it's going to run this week and on Monday Night Football. I've always thought he was a tough competitor. You hear Sean Desai, the defensive coordinator of the Eagles, talk about Baker Mayfield in his press conference today or yesterday at NovaCare, and the way he's playing right now, when you look at him on film, tough to get down, tough to sack. Looks like he's obviously he's on a 1-year motivated deal.
Yeah.
And the guy he's throwing to, Mike Evans, is also motivated for that next contract because the Bucs have failed to pay him.
Right. Well, he's motivated as hell, Sal. Mike Evans is unstoppable after the first 2 weeks.
After the first 2 weeks, he's always been unstoppable, Pat. Look, Mike Evans, right now, he's 8th on the active pass receiver list in the National Football League, and he has only 81 touchdowns, second only to Devontae Adams is 87 of active players at the wide receiver position, over 10,000 yards received. Mike Evans is going to the Hall of Fame. I'm on the Hall of Fame selection committee. You know that.
Yeah.
He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
But in the meantime, he's terrorizing people. And where does he make his money?
Yeah.
Over the middle.
Yeah.
And where have the Eagles struggled in the pass defense?
Yeah.
Over the middle. And who are they missing in this game?
Yeah.
Avonte Maddox.
Yeah.
Going to be tough, Pat.
Sal, you did mention though that the Bucs like the blitz. They very much like the blitz, and Todd Bowles, old Temple man, he likes to bring the blitz. But the Eagles have a very good prescription to defeat that, and that is, as they demonstrated Monday night against Minnesota, they run the ball. They run the ball extremely well, and nothing, I think, Sal, puts the defense more on its heels than the ability for then 2nd and 3 and 2nd and 2, which is what the Eagles were specializing in Monday night.
Yeah, we were talking about the Eagles defense. Let's talk about the Eagles offense. Todd Blitz as the number 3 blitzing team in the league right now. They will get after the quarterback early and often. The Eagles offensive line is very good, but as you mentioned, there are 2 ways for the quarterback and the coaching staff to mitigate the blitz. One is quickly designed running a passing play so Jalen Hurts can get the ball out of his hands quickly. And 2, run the football right at the pass rushers. That's the way they have reduced Micah Parsons' effectiveness at rushing the passer when they play Dallas. They run right at him.
Right.
So run right at the best pass rushers of the Bucs, and that's the recipe for winning this football game.
Right.
Pass plays that are designed to get the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands quickly, because you watch Jalen Hurts this year. The passing game has been very slow to develop.
Right.
And he has been very slow to pull the trigger on the football.
Right.
And he can't do that in this game.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting to see. I think I don't see why they wouldn't emphasize the run again. We'll see if DeAndre Swift can be consistent over a couple weeks. I also want to mention Sal was right as usual. The Bucs have won the last 3 games in this series, going back to 2015. And the overall series is tied 8-8. Subliminally, you would think the Eagles would have the edge, but they don't. So,
they don't. It's first of all, it's tough to win early in the season there because of the heat and humidity.
Yeah,
it'll be a lot less on Monday night.
Right.
But we all remember first play, 72-yard bomb to Deshaun. Maybe it's 75. I have to check that. It was 72 or 75-yard bomb to Deshaun Jackson from Ryan Fitzpatrick of all people.
Yeah, I was going to say, you mentioned Mike Evans, and you're right. Evans should be in the Hall of Fame because aside from Tom Brady, he's not exactly had a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks down there at Tampa.
No.
He's made them all look pretty damn good, the ones.
Yeah. And he's making Baker Mayfield look good right now.
He is. That doesn't help. That doesn't hurt. All right, listen, we get back here. Sal Pao is staying with us. I'm going to talk to him about the bad news the Dallas Cowboys got today. We're going to look at some 0-2 teams and who they're facing, and we're going to talk about some ugly quarterbacking. That's all next on This Week in Pro Football.
Celebrate your victories in style at Spring Mill Country Club. From Eagles wins to baby showers, weddings to birthdays, our picturesque venue is ready to host your special events. Make memories that last a lifetime in our stunning surroundings. Call Spring Mill today at 215-675-6000 and elevate your next event to unforgettable heights. Contact us now to book 215-675-6000.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan, joined by Sal Paolantonio. This Week in Pro Football presented by the good folks at Kennedy Ford, and Sal Pal presented by the great folks at First Bank of New Jersey. All right, Sal Pal, talked about that Eagles game. Let me wander around the NFL with you right now, starting in Dallas. Terrible news today. Trayvon Diggs apparently has torn his ACL in practice and is lost for the season. Tell me what effect you think that has on the postseason prospects of the Cowboys.
Oh, we're going all the way to the postseason. Let's just, it's a devastating loss. He's a wonderful player, super tough, super smart, very productive, takes the ball away like nobody else in the NFL. Dallas is going to definitely miss him, just like the Eagles are going to be missing Avonte Maddox. I mean, the injuries are all over the place in the National Football League, as we always see the first couple of weeks.
Right.
Teams are back on the field. They're not used to getting hit. They're not used to the pace of things.
Yeah.
And there are injuries. Now, I don't know what happened in this particular case, but, you never like to see players get injured.
But Sal, you bring it up and it doesn't it nag at you? Because you're right. It does seem to be happening each year, and it does seem to be happening in direct inverse proportion to how little everybody's playing in the preseason. And
there's
I
no
don't know
question about that. It's got to be a provable theory that these players who are not playing in the preseason are not used to the action and how fast it is and the wear and tear on their bodies. I mean, for me, one guy who should not have been on the field is Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they really risked losing Joe Burrow for long stretches of time and hurt their chances of going to the playoffs in Cincinnati by putting him out there with that bad calf strain. But, players want to play. I get it. But, you got to protect these guys from themselves sometimes.
That calf strain is awful close to the Achilles. You can just see it. The Bengals. But there you go. The Bengals, though, Sal, one of those teams that sit in an 0-2.
And the Bengals are in real trouble, Pat. Real trouble.
So, Xander, if you can bring up that Week 3 schedule, what I want to do, Sal, is concentrate on these 0-2 teams.
Okay, let's start. Let's go rat-a-tat-tat. What do you got? Go through.
Well, I got, for instance, I have the 0-2 Chargers at the 0-2 Vikings. Now, this is basically a play-out game. I mean, I think whoever loses this game is in serious trouble towards postseason. How do you see this game?
Oh, if the Chargers lose, they're done.
Yeah.
You can't be 0-3 in the AFC. Can't happen. It's too competitive. Yeah. Vikings could survive 0-3, but it'll be very difficult.
Yeah, you're right. I think the Vikings would still have a path for the division title because it's not a strong division right now. South New England, off 2 home losses, now goes to the Jets to face Zach Wilson. Luckily for them, not Aaron Rodgers. What are your thoughts on this 0-2 Pats team?
Well, if Bill Belichick cannot beat Zach Wilson and what the Jets have been putting out there on offense in the last 2 games, then we have to question where Bill Belichick is as a head coach and where this football team is. Right. So this is not only for the season of the Patriots, it is for going forward as Belichick as the head coach of the team, in my view. I realize he's 19 away from surpassing Don Shula.
Right.
He's been playing 500 ball the last 2 years without Brady.
Right.
But I don't see them going 500 if they lose to the Jets on Sunday. So now the Robert Kraft, they will get 6 wins. What does Robert Kraft do at the end of the year? Radio talk show hosts are already calling for Belichick to be fired right now.
I think the Patriots just they've not invested in the skill position. The free agent signings that they have made, Sal, have not worked for them. I'm talking about at the skill positions. And when Kendrick Bourne is your wide receiver one, you are at a severe disadvantage relative to a lot of the rest of the AFC, and you can't hide it. I think
I covered that game last year in New England, and the Jets lost the game on a punt return for a touchdown, walk-off punt return for a touchdown at the end of the game. They struggled to beat Zach Wilson in that game.
Yeah.
After the game, Wilson was benched because not how bad he played, because of his attitude in the locker room post-game. I mean, the Patriots got lucky. That was a punt return that had a block in the back that wasn't called. That's if I'm going to say it again. If Bill Belichick can't beat Zach Wilson and this Jets offense in this game, then a lot of questions will be raised. A lot. Legitimate questions.
So the last 0-2 team I wanted to get your opinion on was the Denver Broncos. Now, Denver lost a bad game to Washington last week, even though they almost pulled it off at the end with a 2-point conversion. But a lot of expectations in Denver. Sean Payton he's not making petty cash out there. He's brought in to turn Russell Wilson and that franchise around, not off to a good start. Now they go to Miami to face the very, very, very good 2-0 Dolphins.
Well, they got to win a football game, and they're not going to win this week, so they can forget about that. They're going to start 0-3. And that's really going to put a nail in the coffin, I think, for Denver's postseason hopes. Again, because the AFC is so competitive. Now, it's not as competitive as we thought it would be because the Chargers have been awful.
Right.
The Jets lost Aaron Rodgers. The Bengals are playing with a quarterback who's playing on one leg right now.
Right.
Pittsburgh has been up and down. It probably should have lost. Deshaun Watson, I don't know where he is as a quarterback. Yeah. Jim Schwartz can only win so many games in Cleveland. Yeah. But Miami is much, much better. Yeah. Kansas City is going to get healthy. Yeah. Baltimore is going to be a tough out all year long.
They always are. They always are.
Yeah. So,
right. But now
you can't go 0-3, Pat, in that conference. You just can't.
All right, Sal, again, you segued very nicely into what else I want to talk about. Xander, you can get rid of that. Thank you very much. Sal, the quarterbacks. I mentioned to you, we talked during the week, and Sal is always kind enough to give me the fabulous NFL record and fact book here. Sal, I added up. I can name you 9 quarterbacks in the NFL, not bad ones either. Jalen Hurts, Tua, Joe Burrow, Kenny Pickett, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. 9 starters who combined have less wins than Aaron Rodgers career-wise. The NFL, Sal, I think, has a quarterback experience problem. Do you agree? Is the NFL right now too inexperienced at quarterback?
Well, they have a number of issues at the quarterback position. Inexperience is definitely on the list, Pat. The number one thing, I think, is quarterback development. And in college, they use a lot of spread offense, no huddle.
Exactly right.
Where everything is dictated from the sideline. Right. That's a hard game to play at the NFL level. Why? Because every defensive end is a first-round pick.
Right.
Every corner is a first-round pick.
Right.
They're super tough, super smart, super fast, and they're coming for your quarterback. Right. So it's very tough to transition from the college game. Look what's going on with Justin Fields. Plus, some of these quarterbacks are put into the wrong system. Justin Fields should not be a drop-back quarterback in the NFL. He was a tremendous dual-threat quarterback. They decided to put him in the pocket. I don't know why. Right. Some quarterbacks have struggled big time. Deshaun Watson can't get his footing in Cleveland. Mac Jones can't get his footing in New England. Right. These were guys who everybody thought was going to be the savior of a franchise. So there are a lot of reasons, but most of them have to do with injury. Remember, 68 quarterbacks started a game last year, Pat. That's the most ever in the NFL, 68. And you look at the top active passers in the NFL. Pat, look up. I got my record and fact book right here, too. Okay. Page 27, Pat. Patrick Mahomes, okay? Without Travis Kelce, who is Patrick Mahomes?
Right.
Aaron Rodgers injured.
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson, number 3 on the list,
Yeah.
playing poorly.
He
Joe
is.
Burrow, injured. Russell Wilson, playing poorly.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo, yikes, what are we doing?
I know.
Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, playing poorly. Justin Herbert, number 10, of the top 10 quarterbacks on the active list.
Yep.
You got 3 of them that are playing well. 3 out of 10.
Yeah, that's right. And you mentioned just Justin Fields, and you said he's in the wrong system, which is true. But I posit to you, Sal, that the running quarterback threat in the NFL is just not going to last. It will not last. Especially someone built like Justin Fields. Another great example, Anthony Richardson. Did you see the shot he took when he ran that second touchdown in for Indianapolis last week? He almost got knocked out of the state of Indiana. And so I think the teams that are going to try, Lamar's another good example. He misses 2 to 3 games every single year. I think, as you said, the college game is not creating Aaron Rodgers type guys or Tom Brady type guys anymore. They're creating Justin Fields and Anthony Richardson type guys, and there's just too many good defensive players in the NFL for them to make that transition.
Well, it's not monolithic. Let me say this. You need a dual threat quarterback in the NFL because the corners and the pass rushers are too fast. They got to be able to get out of the way of the rush. But you don't want the running quarterback to be the focal point of your offense for 2 reasons. 1, points come out of the passing game, as Ron Jaworski banged into my head for years on the matchup show. And 2, as you mentioned, they get hurt. Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts got hurt. Tua, Anthony Richardson, the young man Anthony Richardson. C.J. Stroud is already banged up.
Right.
Lamar Jackson missed 3 games last year. You don't want it to be the focal point of what you do.
Yeah.
But you got to have a guy who can get out of the way of the rush.
That's fair. That is entirely fair.
Not monolithic. The answer is not an easy one.
No, but it's I think it's more of a problem than the NFL's thinking about in terms of. I think the quarterback play has been very sloppy.
Look at Patrick Mahomes. He almost didn't make it through the Super Bowl.
That's right.
And he doesn't run.
Yeah.
As there are no design runs that Andy Reid puts in for Patrick Mahomes. Right. Maybe a couple.
Yeah.
But he can do things off schedule, second reaction throws. As the skiers like to say, off piste. He can go off the trail, and he can still make big plays.
All right.
By the way, I'm glad you have Bob Angelo, my friend, on the show. I bought his book. Yeah. I love it. It is fantastic. Anybody who loves the NFL, it's one of those books that you have to have in the house, and you don't have to read the whole thing at once.
Right.
You read it in little snippets. Right. It's absolutely great.
Yeah.
I bought it the old-fashioned way. I went to my Barnes & Noble in Morristown, New Jersey. I found one on the shelf. As an author, the best 4 words in an author's life are not "I read your book." They are "I bought your book." And I bought Bob's book, and it was great. Buy the book. It's great.
Excellent. All right, Sal, the matchup show this weekend on both networks, right? 6:30, 7:30. Do I have those times?
So, you can stream us, get us on demand. But if you want to go linear TV the old-fashioned way, as you and I, Pat, are,
right.
ESPN2 on Saturdays, ESPN on Sundays. Darius Butler, Greg Cosell. We film it on Friday mornings at NFL Films. It's the longest running NFL studio show in history. It's a great show.
Yeah, it certainly is. Great show. I want everybody to watch that. And this weekend, I know you're in Tampa. Are you anywhere else? Any other?
No, I am not in Tampa. I am going to the Jets and Patriots.
Okay.
And then I'll be on the beautiful 6 ABC, Channel 6 on Monday night.
All right. Excellent. Well done. All right, Sal Pal, thanks for all your time today. Appreciate it very much. We'll talk to you very soon here on This Week in Pro Football. Thanks for the fact book, pal. And everybody, don't forget the Otho Davis. If you want to check that out, Sal Pal, well-deserved. The Otho Davis Scholarship Foundation sponsoring the Dick Vermeil Lifetime Achievement Award. Sal Pal is the recipient, and well-deserved indeed for a long and distinguished career in sports and the National Football League. When we get back, Sean Green. We're going to talk with Sean, of course, the the head of SGPN Sports and Bet SGPN. We're going to talk to Sean about a mystifying field goal last week that I want Sean's opinion on. And how about some props for week 3? We'll do that next on This Week in Pro Football.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. But that's not all. They are excited to join forces with another pillar of the community banking world in eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank. Their team of professionals will fit seamlessly into First Bank's culture of dedication and understanding your financial aspirations to fuel your success. With a deep-rooted commitment to eastern Pennsylvania, Malvern Bank stands as a testament to community values and unwavering support. Experience the difference of real relationships and dedicated personal bankers. Connect with any member of the team today at our Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or you can call them directly at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC. At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@whistpearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@whistpearl.com.
I want to be a game changer in construction. I want to be able to provide diversity in the workforce, and it starts at the top. I started Rodriguez Construction Group in 2013 with 2 employees, and we're 85 strong today. M&T has been a great partner since day one, providing us the access, the opportunity, the funding to be able to continue our growth. We can change the community in a positive way, one person at a time, one job at a time, and one family at a time. I think M&T Bank is very committed to the community, just like us.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan, a segment there with Sal Paolantonio, helping a lot of people out here. I want to get the opinion, too, of this gentleman. He is, of course, the host of Bet SGPN Sports. That would be the great Deshaun Green out. Where are you, Los Angeles or Las Vegas today? Where are you?
Yeah, I'm out here in beautiful LA, but yeah, we will be out in Vegas tomorrow doing our weekly Friday night show at VEASAN there from the circus. So yeah, can't wait for another NFL weekend.
Yeah, you're the new entourage now, man. That show went off HBO, and you have now stepped into Adrian Grenier's shoes. And
yeah.
Living that high life, aren't you, pal?
Yes, high life of degens. We're not really quite rolling around in mansions and.
We don't have any degens on this program. It's a high quality program here, Sean. We do not allow that type.
No, never.
But anyway, thank you very much for joining me. And before we get to some other things, I just wanted to get your opinion. As you look at the first 2 weeks, I was just positing to Sal that I think quarterback play has been very weak. Do you agree? And if so, why do you think so?
Yeah, it's certainly weak is a word. I think also sloppy, I think would make a lot of sense. It's hard not to think as these teams figure out, hey, we shouldn't play these guys in preseason. We don't want them getting hurt. That leads to some sloppy quarterback play. There's also been injury. Joe Burrow That calf has to be bothering him, I think, is part of it. New offensive coordinators, I think that is part of the issue with Jalen Hurts, where he hasn't looked quite as sharp as he did ending the last season. So I think it's a little bit all over the map. And then you got the new guys. I mean, Bryce Young, to me, doesn't quite look like he's ready for the NFL, so it might take a little bit. Same with C.J. Stroud. He's new, he's a rookie, so it's probably a mix of all that.
Yeah, and I was saying I think it's the latter. What you just said. I don't know. I think Sal was onto something there when he said that the college game right now is not preparing these guys in a well-rounded way for how good the NFL is. You know, you play college, even if you're in a top Big Five conference program, Sean, you're still, some of the guys you're playing against are just not going to be all pro guys. But when you get up that pyramid, you get into the NFL, everybody is.
Yeah, and to that point, like they used to let guys, you used to be a number one pick overall or first round quarterback, and you wouldn't play for a year or two. So those days are gone. If you're anywhere in the first round, you're probably starting day one, if not, somewhat early on in the season.
Now you're right. That's a key point, and the on-the-job training is very painful indeed, as evidenced by, if you saw Anthony Richardson last week on that second touchdown run, he almost got knocked clean out of the building.
Oh man, I was so bummed because I played the daily fantasy and I had Anthony Richardson and 2 rushing touchdowns that early in the game. You're licking your chops. Wow. But in a weird way, again, super small sample size, he to me at least looks the closest to an NFL quarterback. A lot of ball left to be played.
Big guy, and you're right. I think he does have more of the tools. I certainly agree. But I don't know. I'm just going to do nothing but yell at Justin Bruni the whole segment when we talk about fantasy because I'm so angry. I made a decision last week that just can't be believed that I did it. I don't like to play guys on Thursday night. I can't stand playing guys on Thursday night.
Oh, no.
I sat Kirk Cousins because I thought the Eagles would shut him down.
No.
Because they were playing catch up all night.
Yeah, no, it was weird because you look at the numbers and you're like, oh my God, Kirk Cousins balled out of his mind. But really, game flow wise, it didn't really feel like that. And he had that fumble, which really turned the game, but of course didn't really hurt you that bad in fantasy. So RIP.
Guess who I had Monday instead of Kirk Cousins?
Oh no.
Derek Carr.
Oh no.
I'm thinking he's got 3 great receivers. I should be talking. I'm going to talk to Justin about this. I'm not going to bore you with it.
No. Yeah. I
said to my wife at 7:00, if stupid Derek shows up, and I'll know right away. I'll know within 5 minutes whether stupid Derek is. And there he was. Oh, my God. And then to top it off, my first round pick, Nick Chubb.
Oh, brutal.
What a fantasy weekend, Sean. So,
well, and gambling as well because I had Nick Chubb over rushing yards and he was off to a great start.
What was the number? What was the over number?
It was like 81.5 and he had 68 yards.
He had 68 yards when and you know what, Sean? I don't know. That looked like an awful deliberate hit by Minka Fitzpatrick. I don't know. It just looked like he just hit him. He hit him right. He caved his knee in.
Yeah. This is how deep I go with the gambling, Pat. You'll find this funny. So I was doing this 5-player prop parlay, and one of the guys I had was Nick Chubb. The other guy I had was Minka Fitzpatrick on the tackles. So that tackle, I hit my Minka Fitzpatrick tackle prop, but then he destroyed the other guy's knee, so he killed. He both won the prop for me and then killed the other one.
Oh God, how about that?
So why did you go too crazy?
Talking with here on This Week of Pro Football presented by Kennedy Ford. We're talking with Sean Green. Sean's presented by Live Hotel Casino Philadelphia. Sean, the field goal by Sean McVay. The Rams are down 30-20. There's 4 seconds left in the game. They're sitting at about the 49 or 20-yard line or thereabouts. And out comes Brett Maher to kick a field goal, which he does. Final score 30-23. Rams. Most books, right, Sean? The Rams were, I think, 7.5 to 8.
Yep.
So they covered. What were your thoughts on that? And what have you heard in the gaming community about McVay's decision?
Well, I think it really depends on who you were on that week, because I had the Rams catching 7.5. I've been high on the Rams coming into the season. I thought they played a pretty decent game.
They did. Kyren
Williams catches that pass instead of it turning into an interception, and the way the half ended. So they were hanging around in that game. Yeah, I think, well, one, if you're going to do that move and kick the field goal, you got to do it where you have a little bit of time left. So they should have tried that the play before. But as someone who had the Rams plus 7.5, I loved it. I was cheering. And then Sean McVay goes, I guess some people in Vegas were mad. Yeah, some were mad. Some were really happy. And all these bad beats you hear about are awesome beats for the people on the other side. The key is just getting on that right side. Yeah, I don't know what you do here, because I guess if you're Sean McVay, you kick the field goal. Maybe there's some deep, like in the playoffs, some sort of tiebreaker. There is point differential in the division. So
I think you're giving him too much credit. I think he hates the 49ers.
Yes.
Most of the 49er bets were from pro 49er fans, and he was going to ruin their days.
Yeah, I he was a guy. He claimed to not know the spread, but he preseason for the Rams, he was talking about how their win total was only 6.5. So I don't know how you know about the win total, but not the spread that week.
Right. Yeah. All right, Sean. Let's look at this Eagles Buccaneers Monday night. The Birds traveling to surprisingly 2-0 Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Are you a little more sold on Baker Mayfield? Do you think there's a new Baker after wandering around the NFL the last few seasons?
Well, he's certainly, as just an observer, he's more fun to root for now, right? Because when he first came in, the commercials were everywhere. It was so much hype, and it was just disappointing and frustrating and kind of annoying with the commercials everywhere. Now he's been humbled. Now he's kind of like a redemption story. It's almost, and it has been fun to root for him these first couple of games. Again, Bucs were one of my other long shot to win the division. I thought the NFC South was a toss-up. I thought they had talent on defense. I thought they had, they have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. I projected to have a really good year. He's off to a good start. So I thought they could kind of hang around in a division that felt wide open, and they were like 9-1. So I have been enjoying how they looked these first two games. Although I would preface it by saying, let's take a look at the defenses they face, right? They face this Minnesota Vikings defense, which has clearly struggled against the Eagles, and then even at the Bucs at home, and then the Chicago Bears defense. I mean, Lord knows what's going on with them and their defensive coordinator. So they've been given two pretty good opportunities to hang around and exceed expectations there. So hats off to them. This Monday night game, I think, is going to be a much tougher test for them, especially that Ryan Jensen, their all-pro center, who blew out his knee, unfortunately, in the preseason. Him coming back was going to be a good story, but it basically ended his career. I think that injury is really going to show up Monday night with Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox there on the inside.
Yeah, I think it's going to be – that's a tall order to expect Tampa's going to be able to go 3-0. It's a big step up.
Yeah.
Eagles are 5.5, Sean. Give me your thoughts on that number.
Yeah, in general, I'm taking Monday Night Dogs, but I'll take the Eagles here as the road favorite, and I'm always going to take the Eagles. But the homerism aside, I would say I think essentially a mini bye playing on Thursday and then getting the not having to play the following Monday, I think came at the right time for this Eagles offense, because it does seem like they're playing the RPO stuff a little bit different. It does seem like some of the new stuff they put in. Offense a little out of sync, very talented offense still. You saw that when their backs are against the wall and they're like, hey, we'll just run it down their throats, and they did.
Right.
I feel like this is a get-right game, in particular for the Eagles' passing game. I think there are some opportunities. Even in the win, I think Justin Jefferson against the Bucs won, but Justin Jefferson still put up like 150 yards against them. So I think A.J. Brown is the guy. Squeaky wheel gets the grease here. Has a big game against the second.
I think they're going to look to A.J. Brown. I agree with you about that. It'd be very interesting to see how DeAndre Swift does if he puts a hammerlock down on that starting running back job. Sal was raving about Mike Evans. What a great start he is off to. What's the prop number on Mike Evans receiving yards?
I'll pull it up right here. If I had to guess, I would say they're putting him around Let's see. Well, A.J. Brown is at 68.5, and then Mike Evans, 53.5. So,
53. Boy, I go the over on that. I go the over.
Yeah, I'm with you. And especially, I think Evans and Godwin, I think both could have good games yardage-wise, especially if the Eagles do get out to a little bit of a lead. They sit back a little bit in the same way that Kirk Cousins got a bunch of padded his numbers there with some yards. I wouldn't be surprised if Baker does. The Eagles obviously still haven't figured out what they're going to do post Avonte Maddox. You got Bradbury, who should be back, but he is coming off a concussion. So I would imagine that they'll try and keep Slay on Evans, but we'll see. So, yeah, that's a pretty low number for a guy who's just having an awesome season.
All right, one last number I want from you is Jalen Hurts. Last week, you liked the over number on Jalen Hurts rushing yards. Where is that this week? And I'm asking because it seems to me that the Eagles – I think the Eagles are going to try and be very cautious with Hurts as far as running the ball. So where's that number for Monday night?
Yeah, it's 44.5. And I think instead of messing around with his rushing yardage, you just keep playing his rushing touchdown, right? Like his rushing touchdowns every game are even money. You play it from Pat, write this down. From here until the end of the season, just play Jalen Hurts rushing touchdowns unless they completely change the odds. You go 60, 70%, you're cashing. So I think Jalen Hurts, to your point, they seem to be playing him differently. They seem to maybe be hesitating a little bit on him, on really letting him loose with his legs. So, yeah, I think I'd rather play the rushing touchdowns than his rushing yards.
Excellent advice there, Sean Green. Thank you very much for taking all this time. Make sure the posse is ready to go now for Vegas.
Let's go.
Hey, keep me posted. I'll go back to my suburban Philadelphia home. Go to Vegas. It sounds about right. We'll do that, and I look forward to everybody give Sean a follow. What's your X handle? At Sean.
Yeah, at Sean T Green or at Gambling Podcast for the show handle, and then just Sports Gambling Podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Excellent. All right, Sean. Thanks very much, pal. Appreciate
it. All right, thanks, Pat.
All right, great Sean Green joining me right there. His colleague, Justin Bruni. I hope Justin's got his clerical collar on because I need to get the confession. I was just telling you, I had the most disastrous fantasy week ever, and Justin's going to pay the price. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk some fantasy football. Don't forget Bob Angelo joining me near the top of the hour from NFL Films. We're going to talk about his new book. All right. We're going to do all of that as we finish up here week 3 on This Week in Pro Football.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
John Kennedy Ford. Their reputation sounded too good to be true, so my partner and I decided to do a little digging.
They know we can see them, right?
We could get them a great deal if they just come inside.
They made us. Run! Uncovering a better car buying experience is easy at John Kennedy Ford. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
Welcome back here to week 3, This Week in Pro Football here on JAKIB Sports. Don't forget to follow on X at PWIPF-Pat. You can follow the station at JAKIB Sports. Give us a follow all the time. Always a good follow. I think I am anyway. This guy will attest to that thing. I think my colleague here from SGPN, that would be the great Justin Bruni. Justin, how you doing?
Doing well, sir. Doing well. I'm here to help. It sounds like things are not going so well for you fantasy-wise.
Please. I was just telling Sean Green and our audience how I had the worst fantasy week ever. I benched Kirk Cousins. I play bad Derek Carr like an idiot because I thought the Saints good receivers. Carolina's missing their top DB. Just give me a couple touchdowns. I wasn't sure what the Eagles were going to do with Cousins. I thought they shut him down. Wrong on everything. Topped off by having drafted Nick Chubb in the first round.
That's tough.
And I picked Chubb because I was worried about Austin Eckler getting hurt. How's that for being shrewd?
And they both wound up getting hurt. That's just the game that you play, drafting running back early. A lot of the fantasy market and community has really shifted to try and push people to draft receiver early on because of these exact issues. Like losing your first and second round draft capital early in the season is very tough to recover from, but there have been some players that have been able to fill in and really help us, off the waiver wire really early. So anything that you're looking at, if you want some help, if you got some names available you're looking at, I'm all ears.
All right. Well, I mean, a lot of them are, I think it's pretty slim picking. Somebody in our draft even picked Kareem Hunt as a UFA.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So it's tough right now, but you're right. What you said about maybe shift now to the wide receivers, if nothing else, just as a defensive measure, because they seem to get hurt a hell of a lot less. I was looking at it that Justin Chubb gone. Austin Eckler's already missed a week, and he's not a lock for this week. Saquon now is going to be out. Looks like a couple of games. Aaron Jones starting his injury tour early. Very, very tough on the running back front so far in the NFL.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a clear reason why we're seeing less of an investment in them, from the owners and the GMs. Yeah. I think it's starting to kind of add up, and the public is starting to kind of see why these GMs and front offices aren't making more of a fiscal commitment to these players in the position. I think more or less they need to really readjust how they handle the pay to certain positions, quarterback, running back, etc.
It's amazing, Justin, looking at like a particular fantasy website that I use, top 10 running backs for week 3. It includes, Bijan Robinson. Okay. I'll sign off on that. Alexander Madison. Well, I don't know. No.
Completely disagree. He does not pass the eye test whatsoever. And the fact that Minnesota just traded for Cam Akers, he has a down arrow next to his name as far as I'm concerned.
Isaiah Pacheco, 6. Yeah. Now they're playing the Bears. All right, maybe you're giving him a bump there, but still, Matt, the fact that these names, Kyron Williams of the Rams, is in the top 10.
I was asked many times last week, should I start Baker Mayfield? And as a Bears fan, I said yes every time. I mean, there were certainly some options that I said no. I mean, there was definitely some other names that were brought up. I'm sure I told somebody to start Derek Carr over Baker Mayfield for the same reasons that you started him. But obviously, that's an easy yes. Like that, I don't even know why that would really be a question most weeks.
But that name, Justin, please, we are never going to mention the name of that Saints quarterback again on this program. I can't stand that guy and haven't liked him since he was ruining the Raiders. Because I always thought he underperformed out there. Finally, they had enough of him. And please, Kirk Cousins.
Somewhere Derek Carr is on third down and he's throwing it out of bounds.
I know. That's all he does. He goes back to pass. If somebody's not wide open, standing on their head saying, please throw me the ball, forget about it.
It's got to be third down, though. Like, it's got to be like 3rd and 9, and he's just got to set hut 1, 2. It's already out of bounds.
I see. And I see the Saints are still doing that nonsense. Bringing in the other guy on first down, and
it works. Yeah. I don't know why, but it's working for him. Taysom Hill, he is earning that money. Tackles, catches, rushing.
I know, but if you can't play the Saints quarterback because you only get 2 inside the 10-yard line. You're only getting 2 downs, and if those 2 downs are Derek Carr, you're finished.
I'm not going to say that he's going to have a great season, but he's certainly going to have games better than this week. You're just never going to know when to start him. So unless you're in a super flex league, you can definitely feel comfortable benching or even cutting him in a lot of more casual leagues.
So tell me, we've been talking throughout the show, Justin, about quarterbacks and quarterback play. Mm-hmm. And so what are you doing with your quarterback rankings as far as guys tell me is there anybody this week you think, and I'm talking about the slow starts at quarterback, guys like Justin Herbert as an example, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. Is anybody you think primed for a breakout week?
Let's see. Justin Fields gets the Chiefs. Their defense has been actually pretty underrated. I think they get the pressure to him early. I wouldn't consider this to be a bounce back week for him. Let's see. The Chargers get the Vikings. As far as like a fantasy production goes, if Justin Herbert doesn't get at least 2 touchdowns or more in this game, you can definitely start to consider him a sell candidate. This should be a bountiful game for fantasy production from both sides. So no questions asked. You're firing up both of those quarterbacks, also in Kirk Cousins. Who was the other one that you had asked about?
I
Joe Burrow?
Trevor Lawrence. I mean, they don't even put up a touchdown. They were in the red zone numerous times last week against Kansas City, and he couldn't get it done.
Yeah, again, I think the Kansas City Chiefs defense is just underrated. I actually sat the Ravens defense this week for the Chiefs, and I had obviously a great result, from a fantasy perspective. So I just think that their defense is sneaky, especially up front with Chris Jones back. To the rebound quarterbacks, I think Burrow can have a better week up against the Rams. Their defense hasn't been great. Obviously, that's been their Achilles heel so far. So maybe this is an opportunity for Burrow to, actually take off. I think if you have Burrow, you're just going to ride him out. I mean, if you're already 0-2, are you really going to sit him for, like a Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think has a matchup with Pittsburgh? Maybe you don't do that, actually. I'm trying to think of somebody, maybe like Desmond Ridder or Jared Goff. Like they've had okay starts, at least Desmond Ridder in the second game. CJ Stroud had a good fantasy production. You're not sitting Joe Burrow for those guys. I just can't do that. Especially where you drafted him. Like you're kind of stuck in that situation. But again, I think this is a good week for a bounce back. Rams defense has been bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, is that bounce back. And you could see something out of Lawrence and the Jaguars. They are hosting Houston. And I think Jacksonville wants to be healthy here and start feeling good about themselves, even though Houston's defense, not that bad at defense. And it won't be an easy sled for the Jaguars. But actually, Justin, I drafted the Jaguars defense as a sneaky play, figuring there's going to be 6 times a year they'll look good against either Indy, Houston, or Tennessee. But so far, defense-wise, really, other than the Cowboys, you mentioned, who was it? Kansas City. You mentioned,
Kansas City's been good. They've been strong.
Yeah, so not much else going on defensive-wise so far. But all right, wide receivers. Before I let you go, Justin, anybody there you looking for maybe to bust out who hasn't really been doing much so far? Guys like AJ Brown of the Eagles, Mike Williams of the Chargers, Keenan Allen, a big week last week. Mike Williams, Jamar Chase, guys like that. Anybody you thinking maybe is a full-on go this week?
Well, like I said, you got to fire up all your Chargers and all your Vikings. So Mike Williams, definitely a good candidate to score a touchdown this week. So he's going to be a lock to start in all scoring formats, standard, half point, full point, PPR for sure. And again, I just said to start Burrow. Yeah, you got to fire up Jamar Chase. You're not sitting this guy. I do believe he's in line for a bounce back. Again, the Rams defense, not very good. It's pretty pedestrian over there right now. So I like those two to connect on a touchdown for sure.
I like the Bengals a lot this week. I think the Rams are playing hard, but I don't think they're going to match up well here.
And don't forget, there's a little bit of a chip on each other's shoulders. These are two teams that met in the Super Bowl not too long ago.
True, it's true. And please God, I have Joe Mixon. Justin, I insist you grant me a touchdown from Joe Mixon this week. All right. Don't let me down either.
And so it shall be.
All right, Justin Bruni, thank you very much. Where does everybody find you? And tell me, especially, where can they find you Sunday morning, wherever there's some late breaking news?
Yep, absolutely. So you can find me on the X at SGPNJB. I'll be live tonight, 9 Eastern, on our YouTube channel, going over starter sit questions, and we'll be doing the same thing Sunday morning again on our YouTube channel, SGPN Fantasy Football. Put it into that search bar. You'll find us real quick.
Excellent. Justin, thank you very much, pal. Appreciate you putting up with my nonsense and my Derek Carr nonsense.
Hey, best of luck this week. And hey, send me those waiver questions. I'm always here for you. I'm a resource.
All right, appreciate it very much. Thanks. All right, Justin Bruni joining me. When we get back, I'm going to be joined by the great Bob Angelo, longtime cameraman and producer with NFL Films. Bob has written a great book called The NFL Off Camera from Temple University Press. The book is out. Sal Paolantonio was talking about it. We're going to talk to Bob about it when we get back here to wrap up week 3 of This Week in Pro Football.
Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated, the concrete cutting specialists in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. These guys are celebrating their 28th anniversary as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. Any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition or interior excavating, call the specialists. Concrete Cutting Systems. They're the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. Call the guys today at 215-533-0652. The website is concretecuttingsystems.net. Let's go Eagles.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
Welcome back to This Week in Pro Football, week number 3 of the National Football League here on JAKIB Sports. Joining you here. To wrap up week 3, I have a very special guest. That would be Bob Angelo from NFL Films and a longtime producer and cameraman for NFL Films, going all the way back to 1975. Bob, welcome to the show. Thanks very much for joining me.
Pat, thank you for having me. I love your set. Everything looks really good here. This is one fine production.
Oh, thank you very much. And this, look, no better a compliment from a gentleman like Bob Angelo, who knows exactly what a good production looks like.
I spent a lot of time setting this stuff up behind me and made sure that everything was visible, because last night I was on a thing this big. And
yes, so there's the book. You can see it over Bob's left shoulder, the NFL Off Camera. And Sal Paolantonio was on my show earlier. There it is, Bob. And Sal Paolantonio was on earlier. He raved about the book, and I want you to know he bought a copy, which is good for you. And but tell me about what made you think about writing the book. How did it pop into your head all of a sudden? You have this treasure trove of knowledge from all those years in NFL Films. What did you to go ahead?
It came from a lot of people saying you should write a book, and I would say, why? I would think memoirs of an NFL Films producer. I wouldn't read that. It just sounds pompous. But I listened, and I finally realized, you know what? I do have lots of stories. I've met lots of people, players, owners, front office people, coaches, media people, and I thought, I can do this. It took me a while. I almost hit delete files quite a few times.
Right.
But eventually I committed to it, and once I committed to it, found a publisher. Ray Didinger said he'd write the foreword for the book.
Very nice.
And the biggest thing was I handed a couple of the stories to my wife, and she read them and said, I think you're onto something here. And I said, wow, that's the first time you've ever complimented my writing ever. So here we are.
Well, it's an excellent book. Thank you very much for the copy that you sent to me. I promise you I will buy the bound copy. And what for my viewers, Bob did was he grouped all the personalities that he's met throughout his career in the NFL by things like Q rating, maybe, or quarterbacks, or position players, or game changers, or things like that. And then he spends 3 or 4 pages on each of those players and provides some anecdotes as to how they made the cut in Bob's books. And what I'd like to do with you, Bob, just so we can give a sample to the viewers here, is I'm going to name some of the guys that some of the passages I saw that stood out to me, and just ask you to reminisce about them a little bit. I'm going to start with Jim Brown, who always amazes me, Bob, as you pointed out in the book. Brown was the 6th player picked in that draft, which is hard to believe. John Arnett went 3 picks ahead of him. But you paint a very imposing and a very stoic picture of Brown. Tell me how it was when you first met him. And do you think, Bob, do you think Jim ever regretted retiring as early as he did?
The answer to that would be no. I think Jim did everything that he set out to do in the National Football League. He was picked in 1957. He was the MVP of the league in his very first year and in his very last year. Yeah. He led the league in rushing 8 times in 9 seasons. Only in 1962 did he dip below 1,000 yards. Yeah. And Jimmy Taylor the guy who did rush for 1,000 yards from the Green Bay Packers. He was the MVP that season. Jim had other interests. Jim is, in addition to being a multi-sport athlete and an All-American in different sports, Jim was a political activist as a young man. Yeah. He came into the National Football League thinking about, racial issues, racial equality. And this was a time when, we were still dealing with that as a nation. I respected that in him. Also, he played for Paul Brown. Yeah. Now, Paul Brown introduced African-American players to the AAFC back in 1946.
Right.
Jim respected that about him. And there were lots of things that Jim really admired about Paul. But when it came to coaching, I think Jim got a little tired of how it was being done in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Landon Collier comes in 1964. They win an NFL title. Jim plays one more year trying to go back-to-back. Didn't quite get there. But by then, he'd already had the movie bug.
Right. Yeah.
Back then, NFL players didn't make a gadzillion dollars just to show up on Sundays.
No, you're right.
Jim made a lot of money with some of those movies. So the answer is no. I think Jimmy Brown was ready to go. And, he acted in quite a few films in his career, was a political activist to the end. I mean, to the very end, and a very formidable human being.
You paint a picture of him in the book. Yeah.
I met him for the second time in the Cleveland Brown locker room late in my career and interviewed him. And apparently I took him out of order. He was supposed to do ESPN. Right. Producer walked in and interrupted us, and Jim just turned that stare on this poor kid and said, "We're in the middle of something right here."
And that was it. That was it for that producer for the short term, huh?
And I tiptoed around him when I walked out of the lobby.
All right. Bob, egos can wreck empires. You quoted in the book in talking about Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Give me your thoughts on that. You mentioned a few anecdotes in the book about Jerry Jones, a very, very hospitable man. He took a photo with Mrs. Angelo, and he
still hangs in our bathroom.
Okay, there you go. But tell me your thoughts on quickly just on Jerry Jones, and your comment. And what I'm asking you is based on your experience with him. Is Jones the type of guy who needs a strong coach to push back at him, or to prevent Jones from getting in his own way?
He needs a competent coach to push back at him. Jerry's not going to do this on his own, even though he wants to and thinks that he is.
Right.
And I think he's taken a lot of responsibility for the fact that they haven't won anything in a quarter of a century.
Right.
Also for the fact that he ran Jimmy out of town, brought in Barry Switzer, and Barry Switzer basically won a Super Bowl with Jimmy's team.
Jimmy's players. He won a Super Bowl with Jimmy's team, and that was it.
So, I mean,
that was it.
But Jerry is a stand-up guy, and so is his son, Steven.
Right.
That said, he's meddlesome. Jerry, when it comes to being the president and general manager of a football team, I think he's got one title too many there.
Yeah.
And his son runs the scouting organization, or at least did back in 2002 when I did the second edition of Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
But Jerry couldn't have been more cordial and more friendly and more accommodating to us as a film team on location with him at first in San Antonio, then back in Dallas. But yes, he brought in Bill Parcells. Yeah. Bill Parcells, he wasn't going to take that crap too long. He fired Jimmy, who had things really under control and moving in the right direction. Yeah. And, then he let and I love Jason Garrett as a human being, but as a coach, Jason never really got it done, never got him over the hump.
Never did. And he got a number of years' chances, Bob, to do it. Yeah.
So, I look at who they've got now. I like Mike McCarthy. Got to know Mike very well in Green Bay. I respect him. I like the fact that he's calling plays. That offense seems to be a little smoother right now. Dak hasn't thrown a pick yet. But the fact of the matter is that defense is unbelievable at this point. And if there's a better defensive player than in the NFL than Micah Parsons, I don't know who it is.
No, but they lost a big one today when Trayvon Diggs went down with an ACL. So it'll be interesting to see how the Cowboys respond to that. Speaking of egos, we're talking with not Bob Angelo, not his ego. We're talking with Bob Angelo, who wrote the book, The NFL Off Camera. I'm urging everybody to go out and take a look at it from Temple University Press. Go buy it. The book is out. And Bob's on a little bit of a tour. You're going to be in Pennsylvania. You're going to be touring from Happy Valley to Pittsburgh. Is that this week, Bob?
The coming week. Penn State on Tuesday night at the Petit Paterno Library. And then Thursdays, various radio things and television things into Friday morning. And then a long book signing at a bookstore, Barnes & Noble. They're carrying the book. And then I'm going home, Neville Island, and they're sponsoring a book signing with all the people I grew up with who still live around Neville Island. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the old folks.
Speaking about I was talking about egos like Jerry Jones. Dan Marino, I thought you wrote some interesting things about Dan Marino, not in as quite a positive light as, say, Jim Brown or even Jerry Jones. Tell me what your encounters were, or maybe an encounter with Marino. I know you went into some detail in the book about how Marino, they decided to put Marino on inside the NFL, right? Yeah. Right. Instead of the great Kurt Gowdy. Kurt Gowdy should never have been kicked off anything.
I hear you.
They kicked him off so that Marino could do some of the voiceover, but it wasn't just that. It was you mentioned at one point you went out of your way to start avoiding him. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, that part of the book went away, and I'm not going to discuss why. I'll just suffice it to say that I've got NFL in the title and on the cover. So there was a proofread done, and that was one of the things they made me take out was an altercation between me and Dan in Buffalo when Dan, as his role, Dan Marino, in his new role with the Dolphins, was talking to his good friend Jim Kelly prior to the game. I wander up with my camera on my shoulder, as I am wont to do, because I'm looking for events like this. The two teams are playing. Why not? And Marino instantly starts to, and Jim Kelly looked at him, and Jim's face said this to me: "What is the particular stick that's up your ass, Dan? Why this is NFL Films, and Jim talked to me for quite a while. Dan just stood there, huffing and puffing and acting like a prima donna. And as I walked away from him, I said to myself, thank goodness I'm retiring soon. I'm never going to go near that guy again. And of course, he had some issues at CBS. I don't want to go into that. That's personal. Dan, I admired him when he was younger. I thought he had the best release. I thought but those things said, Marino beat him in that Super Bowl in Dan's second year, and Dan never got back to a Super Bowl.
That's right. Never got back after Montana beat him in that Super Bowl in Palo Alto. And you're right, a very unfulfilled career, but he was, as far as when they whistle blew, one of the NFL's great quarterbacks. But that's interesting take by you there.
And I like that part of him. I like that part of him a lot. But the other parts, they added up to a little more than the positive.
Fair enough. The last personality I just wanted you to touch on, and just in an overall sense, is Dick Vermeil. Obviously, Dick is revered here in the Philadelphia area for the job he did with the Philadelphia Eagles, and everybody's glad that he finally won a Super Bowl with the then St. Louis Rams. But you mentioned you do portray Vermeil in your book, and you mentioned how on more than one occasion you've seen him in terms of his ability to connect with his players on a very emotional level. Could you just talk about that a little bit?
I can. First, Dick Vermeil is one of the finest human beings I've ever met and known in the National Football League. And I was honored that he wrote one of the back cover endorsements for my book. That said, he worked his teams really hard.
Right.
One of the favorite banners in his locker room was, no one's ever drowned in sweat.
Right.
Dick worked the Eagles, and he turned them from a lackluster run-of-the-mill team into a contender. Dick wore his emotions right here. I mean, just below the surface.
Right.
In 1979, I hadn't graduated to sound cameraman yet. I was still shooting an action camera. Every now and then, when we'd have a sound crew at an Eagles game, we knew that if we could get into Dick Vermeil's locker room, it would be a special moment. One of those games, I think in 1979, I can't quite pinpoint which one it was. It might have been the Eagles-Bears playoff game. The sound man said, come on in, get cutaways. Cutaways are shots of the players that Dick is addressing. So I'm shooting Eagles players as Dick starts to speak, and I can hear his voice cracking again. And I'm thinking, oh boy. Now, all the while, I just came in from a cold weather game to a warm locker room. I'm trying to wipe the fog off the front of my lens so I can see them, the players I'm shooting. But I kind of remember a couple of the linebackers, probably Frank LeMaster, John
maybe.
And I remember Guy Morris being around, but I saw a lip quivering, and I saw one of the guys kind of just going like this to his eye, pretending that he had something in it.
Right.
And I realized Dick reaches these guys on a real human level. People made fun of Dick later, saying he was too emotional. He took things too personally. Well, guess what? Masculinity isn't defined by hard-ass people.
Right.
It's defined by a guy like Dick who realized that there's nothing wrong with some sentiment. There's nothing wrong with genuinely caring about the men who are playing football for you. Nothing wrong with emotion. And I respect that. I learned a life lesson from Dick Vermeil that I take with me and live it every day. I'm not afraid to be emotional in front of my wife or other people, because if I didn't feel that, I'd feel as if I wasn't a complete person. Dick was
fair, Bob. And I'll give you a parallel to that too. Would be a guy like Bill Parcells. Giant players over the decades are still seek out his counsel, even though he was as tough a taskmaster as a sideline coach as there probably was in the NFL. But you're right. Certain coaches like Vermeil, Parcells, they're able to reach players on a level that few other guys can, and that's why they both have gold jackets.
Agree.
Speaks to that. Bob, before I let you go, there's one other thing I was curious to ask you. In your long career, NFL Films is famous sometimes for talking about weather games, like in Tampa Bay, the rain just sluicing down the steps of the stadium, or of course that Cincinnati-San Diego AFC Championship game. Can you recall a particular game you were at where the weather was just almost impossible to deal with?
San Diego and Cincinnati. I shot that one.
You were there.
And then horrible. And my a sound man and I went out the night before, and as we said the next morning, we kept the van engine warm. Well, it's a good thing we were out late having drinks, because sure enough, the other van didn't start. The van that we had out that night did. Right. But worse than that was the one in Minnesota several years ago when the Vikings were hosting the Seattle Seahawks. And early in the week, the meteorologists could see that this was going to be a bad one, and it was. What made it really fun for me, though, was I followed the Vikings around for 25 years, and on Thursday night, my cell phone rang. I looked at it. Oh, Bud Grant. Coach, how are you doing? And Bud got right to the point. Bud was 88 or 89 years old at the time. He got right to the point. Are you going to be shooting our game this weekend, Bob? And I said, I am, Coach. He said, you're going to want to shoot me in pregame because I'm going to walk out in short sleeves.
Oh, I remember that, Bob. I do remember that. Yep.
And I said, of course you are, Coach. Of course you are. Yeah. And he did. And I mean, the crowd went crazy.
I know. I was worried about Bob. I was worried about Bud Grant doing that. Just reminds me of a Monday night game in Chicago when they brought Mike Ditka out, and it was raining at 5 inches an hour. It was freezing cold, and they had brought Ditka out. I thought the same thing, but you're right. That's a great story about Bud Grant, Bud lived a long time. He just died recently.
Yeah. 94 or 5.
Well, it's a terrific book, Bob. It's a terrific read. Sal Pao and I do the same thing. Urged everybody to please go get it. The NFL Off Camera, Temple University Press. It's available. You mentioned Barnes & Noble, but I guess it's available online.
Amazon. Or on my website, www.bobangelo.com. Real simple.
There you go. Doesn't get any simpler than that. But, Bob, I certainly appreciate you taking the time. Everybody go buy that book, and best of luck with that, Bob. And hopefully we'll get to talk to you again. All right.
I'm available. This is what I do now. I promote and publicize.
You're a star. All right, Bob. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Great Bob Angelo joining us there from NFL Films. Bob Angelo would be a guy you would just love to corner at a beef and beer or a cocktail party. I imagine he's got 1,000 stories, many of which are in that book. So I would urge everybody to get that. Okay, that'll do it for this week in pro football for week number 3. Thanks to all my guests, Sal Pao, Justin Bruni, Sean Green, Bob Angelo. And we'll be back here next week, of course, to talk about Eagles-Bucks and talk about week 4, the National Football League. Give me a follow at TWIPFPat on X. And we'll talk to you next week on This Week in Pro Football.